The first time I met my new neighbor, I was holding the wrong end of a couch, sweating through a clean shirt, and pretending I hadn't noticed how beautiful she was. Then her little girl pointed at my forearm and said, "Mom, he has yours." The couch slipped 3 inches. Not enough to crush anybody's toes, thank God, but enough for the woman on the other end to gasp and grab the armrest tighter. Her eyes dropped to my tattoo, then flew back to my face like she'd caught me reading a private letter. For a second, nobody moved. Not me, not her. Not the little girl standing in the doorway with a purple backpack and two missing front teeth. The tattoo wasn't big, just a small black lighthouse on the inside of my right forearm with a thin line of waves beneath it and 3 numbers worked into the base so subtly most people never notice them. But she noticed. The little girl noticed. And the woman, my new neighbor, looked like the ground had tilted under her. I'm Evan Brooks. I was 34 years old that summer, old enough to know better than to get rattled by a pretty woman with moving boxes, young enough to get rattled anyway. I owned a small woodworking shop in Portland, Maine, where I made tables, cabinets, and the kind of custom shelves people ordered when they were trying to convince themselves their lives were more organized than they were. Mine wasn't. I lived alone in a second-floor apartment above a retired mailman named Frank, watered one stubborn basil plant, and kept my circle small on purpose. After my engagement ended 2 years earlier, I got very good at being useful and very bad at being available. Useful was safe. Available got you rearranged. That Saturday morning, I'd been drinking coffee on my balcony when the moving truck backed into the narrow driveway next door. I'd watched 2 movers unload a mattress, a dresser, 3 chairs, and about 9,000 boxes labeled in thick black marker. Then I saw her. She came down the truck ramp carrying a lamp under one arm and a stack of children's books under the other, her dark hair twisted up with a pencil, her jeans dusty at the knees, her mouth set in the determined line of a woman who had decided she did not need help from anyone. Naturally, that was when one of the movers announced they had another job across town and her couch was technically inside enough. It was not inside enough. It was wedged halfway through the doorway like a stubborn animal. I gave myself 30 seconds to mind my own business. I lasted 12. "Need a hand?" I called from the driveway. She turned, and the first thing I noticed was that she had the kind of face that made silence feel fuller. Not perfect. Better than perfect. A faint scar near her eyebrow, tired eyes, a mouth that looked like it knew how to argue and laugh in the same breath. "I need a priest," she said, "but a hand is probably more realistic." That was the first thing she ever said to me. I should have been warned. We got the couch unstuck after 10 minutes of pushing, rotating, and both of us accusing the doorway of personal failure. Her little girl, who introduced herself as June with the solemn authority of a judge, supervised from inside. "You're doing it wrong," June said. Her mother wiped sweat from her temple. "She says that to everyone. Don't take it personally." "I wasn't," I said, until she was right. The woman smiled then, quick and reluctant, and I felt it somewhere inconvenient. "I'm Tessa Ward," she said. "Evan Brooks." "Are you always this helpful to strange women on Saturdays, Evan Brooks?" "Only the ones losing fights with furniture." "I was not losing, I was negotiating." "With a couch?" "It had demands." I laughed, and she looked pleased with herself for earning it. That should have been the harmless part. Neighborly banter. 2 adults making a hard morning easier. Then we lifted the couch again, her fingers brushed mine under the fabric, and the air changed just enough for me to notice. She noticed too. Her eyes flicked down to our hands, then away. We got the couch through the doorway on the next try, both of us stumbling forward into the living room when it finally gave. June clapped like we'd landed a plane. "Mom, can we keep him?" Tessa groaned. "June." I raised both hands. "I'm house-trained, but I require coffee." That smile came back. "Dangerous thing to admit," she said. "I make good coffee." "Then I may be a liability." She held my gaze half a beat longer than necessary. Not flirty exactly, not yet, but curious. Like she was deciding whether I was a problem or a possibility. I'd been looked at plenty of ways in my life. Measured by clients, judged by my ex's friends, pitied by my sister when I showed up alone to family dinners and claimed I preferred it. Tessa looked at me like she saw the locked door and wondered what kind of wood it was made of. That was new. I bent to adjust the couch leg and my sleeve slid up. That was when June saw the tattoo. Mom, her voice changed, softer, confused. He has yours. Tessa went still. I looked from June to her. What? June stepped closer and pointed at my forearm. The little lighthouse. The color drained from Tessa's face so fast I almost reached for her without thinking. You have one too? I asked. Tessa didn't answer. She set down the throw pillow she'd been holding, slowly, like sudden movement might break something. Then she pushed up the sleeve of her faded green t-shirt. There it was, inside her left forearm. The same lighthouse, same narrow waves, same 3 numbers hidden in the base. But hers had one difference mine didn't. A tiny star above the lantern room. My chest tightened. I knew that star. I had drawn it once on a napkin in a 24-hour diner 10 years earlier during the worst rainstorm I'd ever seen, across from a woman whose name I never got to keep. No, that wasn't true. I had her name. Or half of it. Tess. Back then she'd been crying into bad coffee at 2 a.m. with a busted phone, soaked shoes, and a laugh that kept showing up even when it had no business being there. I'd been 24, drunk on grief and black coffee, 3 days after scattering my brother's ashes off the coast. We talked until sunrise. About loss. About fear. About how some people became lighthouses for strangers and never knew it. She drew the lighthouse first. I added the waves. She added the star. Then the storm cleared, life rushed back in, and I let her walk out of that diner because I was too broken to ask for more than one night of honesty. I got the tattoo 6 months later. I never thought I'd see it on another person's skin. Especially not on the woman who had just moved in next door. Tessa's eyes searched my face and I watched recognition arrive slowly. Not like lightning, like dawn. Evan? She whispered. My name sounded different in her mouth now, older, trembling, familiar. June looked between us. You know him? Tessa swallowed, still staring at me. I think I did. The room felt too small. The boxes, the couch, the bright summer light through the bare windows. Everything sharpened and blurred at the same time. I tried to speak, but all that came out was her name. Tess. Her eyes filled, but she laughed once under her breath, like she couldn't believe the universe had such terrible timing and such a strange sense of humor. Then June, completely unaware she had just cracked open a decade-old memory, tugged on her mother's shirt. Mom, she said, is he the lighthouse man? Tessa closed her eyes, and that was when I realized this wasn't just a coincidence. She had told her daughter about me, the lighthouse man. I had been called a lot of things in my life, some earned, some not, but nothing had ever landed in my chest like that. Tessa opened her eyes and looked at June with a tenderness so fierce it made me feel like I'd stepped into a church by accident. Sweetheart, she said softly, why don't you go check if your crayons made it here alive? June frowned. But, please. June considered arguing, then gave me a look that suggested this conversation was being paused, not ended. I'm watching you, she told me. I'd expect nothing less, I said. She marched down the hall, purple backpack bouncing, and disappeared into what I guessed would become her bedroom. Tessa and I stood in the living room among boxes labeled kitchen, bathroom, June's dinosaurs, and one that just said, open when brave. Neither of us spoke. Outside, a gull cried like it was laughing at us. Finally, Tessa rubbed both hands over her face. I cannot believe I said that in front of her. I'm still stuck on Lighthouse Man. Her mouth twitched. Don't let it go to your head. Too late, I'm updating my business cards. That got a real laugh out of her, small but shaky. It loosened something in me. 10 years vanished and didn't. She was older, of course. So was I. There were new lines at the corners of her eyes, a steadiness to her that hadn't been there in the diner. But underneath it, she was still the woman who'd made me talk when I'd planned to sit in silence until morning. I thought I imagined you better than you were, she said. I leaned back against the couch we'd nearly died delivering. That's a dangerous opening statement. I mean it. Her eyes met mine. That night became important to me, and over time I started wondering if maybe I'd turned you into something symbolic. Grief does that. Yeah, I said quietly. It does. Her gaze dropped to my tattoo again. But you got it. So did you. I got mine first. Competitive even with tattoos? I'm just establishing historical accuracy. There it was, the spark. The easy rhythm from a rain-lashed diner booth, returning like muscle memory. I wanted to step closer. I wanted to ask everything at once. Where did you go? Why didn't I follow? Who hurt you? Are you happy? Are you seeing someone? Did you ever think of me at 2 in the morning the way I thought of you? Instead, I said, coffee? She blinked. What? You claimed you make good coffee. I'd like to test that. Her expression softened into something cautious and warm. My coffee maker is in one of these boxes. I own a coffee maker. You're inviting me over? I'm inviting you and your tiny parole officer over, unless that's too strange. Tessa looked toward the hallway, then back at me. For a moment, I saw the calculation of a mother. Safety, schedules, boundaries, the 1,000 invisible gates a woman had to check before accepting even a simple kindness. Then I saw the woman beneath it all take one small step forward. It is strange, she said, but maybe strange is overdue. That was how, 20 minutes later, Tessa Ward sat barefoot at my kitchen table with her daughter, coloring a dragon on a napkin, and my basil plant judging all of us from the windowsill. June had inspected my apartment upon arrival. You don't have a TV, she announced. I have books. She gave me a pitying look. That's sad. June, Tessa warned, but she was smiling into her mug. I also have cookies, I said. June's eyes narrowed. What kind? Chocolate chip. Her suspicion faded. You may continue living here. Tessa laughed, and I nearly forgot to pour my own coffee. There are laughs you enjoy, and there are laughs you want to earn again. Hers was the second kind. We drank coffee while June colored, and the awkwardness thinned into something gentler. Tessa told me she worked as a pediatric speech therapist. She'd moved from Burlington after a hard year and wanted a fresh start near the ocean because June had decided mermaids were scientifically under-researched. I told her about my woodworking shop, about clients who wanted rustic tables but not too rustic, about my sister's twins, about the basil plant I kept alive out of spite. You always made things? Tessa asked. I traced the rim of my mug. My brother did. I learned after he died. Felt like borrowing his hands. Her face changed, not pity, recognition. That was why you were in the diner, she said. I nodded. His memorial was that week. I couldn't sleep. I remember. Her voice dropped. You had salt on your jacket from the water. I stared at her. She blushed faintly. What? You remember that? I remember a lot. The kitchen went quiet except for June's crayon scratching. Tessa's knee brushed mine under the small table. Neither of us moved away. I remember you telling me you were scared that if you stopped grieving, it meant you stopped loving him, she said. My throat tightened. And you told me love wasn't a room you had to stay locked inside. She looked down at her coffee, eyes shining. I can't believe you remember. Tessa. I said her full name because I could now. Because it felt like being trusted with something. I remembered you for 10 years. Her breath caught. June looked up. Mom, why are you making the almost crying face? Tessa coughed and wiped quickly under one eye. Allergies. To coffee? June asked. Very rare condition, I said. June considered that. Grown-ups are weird. Yes, Tessa and I said together. That made all three of us laugh, and the moment settled back onto safer ground. But something had shifted. A door hadn't opened all the way, not yet, but the lock had clicked. After coffee, June curled up on my armchair with a cookie and one of my old nature books, offended to discover it contained no mermaids. Tessa helped me carry mugs to the sink. We stood shoulder to shoulder in the narrow kitchen, too close for neighbors, not close enough for what my body wanted. Thank you, she said. For coffee? For not making that weird. I absolutely made it weird. I have no TV and lied to your child about coffee allergies. She nudged me with her elbow, smiling. For being kind. I turned toward her. She didn't step back. Up close, I could see a tiny freckle near her lower lip. I had the absurd urge to touch it. I wasn't kind that morning 10 years ago, I said. Not really, I was drowning. You sat with me. You sat with me too. You never told me why you were crying. Her smile faded, but she didn't close off. No, I didn't. You don't have to now. I know. She looked at our matching tattoos, both visible where our sleeves had shifted. Maybe I want to. Not all at once. I can do not all at once. Her eyes lifted to mine. Can you? It wasn't a challenge exactly, it was a question with history behind it. A woman asking if I was the kind of man who stayed for the complicated parts. I thought about all the ways I'd kept my life tidy by keeping my heart out of reach. Then I looked at Tessa Ward in my kitchen, sunlight in her hair, my old grief and new hope standing between us like witnesses. I'd like to try, I said. Her expression softened. Then her fingers found mine beside the sink. It was a small touch. Barely anything. But she slid her hand into mine like she had decided something, and my whole body went still with the effort not to rush her. Her thumb brushed once over my knuckles. I wondered about you, she whispered. I squeezed her hand. Yeah? More than I should have. Good, I said before I could stop myself. She laughed under her breath. Good. I'd hate to have been inappropriate alone. Her smile turned warm, almost shy. You weren't. For a heartbeat, the kitchen disappeared. There was only her hand in mine, her face tipped up, the quiet possibility of leaning closer. Then June called from the living room, Mom! He has a book about whales, but still no mermaids. Tessa closed her eyes, laughing silently. I didn't let go of her hand right away. She didn't either. When we finally stepped apart, she looked at me like leaving the kitchen took effort. At the door later, with June dragging her backpack and 2 cookies in a napkin, Tessa paused. I still have unpacking, she said. I still have no plans. That sounded less sad in your head, didn't it? A little. She smiled. Come by tonight. After June's asleep? I could use help with the kitchen boxes. Is that a neighbor request or a date request? Her cheeks colored, but she held my gaze. Depends how charming you are with plates. I'm devastating with mugs. Then 8:30, she said. June tugged her hand. Are we keeping him? Tessa looked at me, and the softness in her eyes was anything but accidental. We'll see, she said. But when she walked away, she looked back once. And I knew I was already in trouble. At 8:27, I stood outside Tessa's door holding a toolbox in one hand and a bottle of wine in the other, wondering which one made me look more desperate. The toolbox said, helpful neighbor. The wine said, date. The fact that I'd changed shirts twice said something I preferred not to examine. Tessa opened the door before I knocked. You're early, she whispered. You're watching through the peephole. I have a child and excellent instincts. You were waiting for me. Her mouth curved. She'd let her hair down, and it fell around her shoulders in dark waves that made me briefly forget every tool I owned. I was waiting for the toolbox, she said. I lifted the wine. And this? That depends. Is it good? No idea. Frank downstairs said it was romantic, but not showy. Tessa pressed her lips. Together, fighting a laugh. You outsourced wine selection to a retired mailman? He has been married 42 years. Fair. She stepped aside and I entered a house transformed by lamplight and cardboard chaos. June was asleep. I could hear the faint hum of a sound machine down the hall. The living room smelled like lemon cleaner, crayons, and something warm. Did you bake? I asked. Banana bread. You made banana bread for unpacking? I was nervous. The honesty stopped me more effectively than flirtation would have. Tessa noticed. Her cheeks flushed. Don't make that face. What face? The one that says you're about to be kind. That's just my face. No, your normal face says you're mentally measuring bookshelves. I smiled. I was nervous too. That softened her. She closed the door behind me and leaned against it for a second, as if admitting nerves had cost her something. Good, she said. I'd hate to be inappropriate alone. She threw my own words back at me, and the grin that broke across her face made my chest ache. We started in the kitchen. Or we claimed we did. Mostly we opened boxes, got distracted, and learned things. Tessa owned 6 mugs with chipped handles because she got attached to impractical objects. She alphabetized spices, but not books. She hated olives, loved thunderstorms, and had a secret weakness for terrible ghost hunting shows. You don't even own a TV, she said when I admitted I'd never watched one. I'm willing to be educated. You say that now. Wait until a man named Brock screams at a dust particle for 40 minutes. If you're there, I'll endure Brock. She looked at me over the rim of a mug. Careful, Evan. With Brock? With saying things like that. The air shifted again. We were standing close by the counter, wine untouched, banana bread cooling between us. Her shoulder nearly brushed my chest when she reached for a stack of plates. I took them from her before she dropped one. Our fingers met. Neither of us made a joke. You asked earlier why I was crying that night, she said quietly. I set the plates down. You don't have to tell me. I know, that's why I can. She turned and leaned back against the counter. The lamplight softened the tired places in her face, but it couldn't erase them. I was 25, engaged to a man everyone said was perfect for me. She gave a small, humorless smile, which should have been my first warning. He didn't hit me. He didn't cheat. Nothing dramatic enough that people understood why I couldn't breathe around him. My hands curled loosely at my sides. He corrected me, constantly. What I wore, what I wanted, how loud I laughed. He made me feel like love was a test I kept failing. She looked down at her tattoo. That night, I'd left our apartment with one bag. My phone died. I walked into that diner because it was open and dry. I remembered her soaked shoes, her shaking hands around the coffee cup. I didn't tell you, she said, because I was ashamed. But you were grieving and you were still gentle. You didn't ask me to perform being okay, you just sat there, like I was allowed to exist exactly as I was. My throat worked. Tessa. So I got the tattoo because I needed proof. Her voice thinned. Proof that one night a stranger made me feel safer than the man who said he loved me. I stepped closer, slowly enough that she could stop me. She didn't. I wish I'd asked for your number, I said. Her eyes lifted. I wished you had too. I thought you needed freedom, not some broken guy trying to follow you into daylight. I did need freedom. Her smile trembled. I also needed to know men like you were real. The words hit hard. Not because they made me heroic, because they made me responsible for the moment we were in now. I raised my hand, then paused. Can I? She nodded. I brushed my thumb beneath her eye, catching the tear before it fell. Her breath shivered. The tiny freckle near her lip was there, undoing me. I'm real, I said, and I'm here now. Tessa's hand closed around my wrist. Her thumb pressed lightly over my pulse. I noticed. There were a dozen reasons not to kiss her. She just moved in. Her daughter slept down the hall. Our history was strange and fragile. I had a talent for wanting, too much and calling it fate. So I let her choose. I stayed still. Tessa rose onto her toes and kissed me. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't dramatic. Her mouth touched mine softly, question and answer at once, and every careful, boarded-up part of me went quiet. I kept my hands gentle, one at her waist, one against the counter beside her. She tasted like wine she hadn't drunk and the cinnamon from banana bread. When she leaned closer, I felt it like trust. The kiss deepened for one breath, then two. Then she pulled back just enough to rest her forehead against my chin. Okay, she whispered. I smiled, dazed. Was that a review? It was a warning I may do that again. I'll try to survive. She laughed softly and tucked her face against my chest. I wrapped my arms around her, careful but certain, and felt her exhale like she'd been holding her breath for years. For a while, we simply stood there in the half-unpacked kitchen, holding each other. No mystery, no storm, just her heartbeat against me. Eventually, she tipped her head back. We are terrible at unpacking. Devastating with mugs, useless with boxes. June will be disappointed. June already suspects I'm deficient because I lack mermaid literature. She likes you, Tessa said. I like her. Her eyes searched mine. The question there wasn't small. I know she comes with me, she said. I didn't pretend not to understand. I wouldn't want you without all of who you are. For a second, her face opened completely. Hope, fear, longing, there and gone. Then she kissed me again, quick and grateful, like she couldn't help it. We returned to unpacking after that, though unpacking now included brushing past each other more than necessary and sharing slices of banana bread from the same plate. At 10, June coughed in her sleep and Tessa immediately went still. Mother first. Always. Go, I whispered. She checked on June while I broke down empty boxes. When she came back, she had her phone in her hand and a crease between her brows. Everything in me tightened before I could stop it. What is it? Nothing. But she said it too quickly. I waited. She sighed and showed me the screen. A text from an unknown number. Heard you moved. We should talk. No name, no context. But I could guess from the way her jaw locked. The ex? I asked. Probably. She set the phone face down on the counter. He does this every year or so, reminds himself I exist. Anger rose in me, clean and immediate, but I forced it down. She didn't need a man taking over her fear. She needed one who remembered she had survived before he arrived. What do you want to do? I asked. Tessa looked at me, and I saw relief flicker there. Nothing tonight. Then we do nothing tonight. Her shoulders dropped. I held out my hand. Come here. She came without pretending she didn't want to. I folded her against me again, not as a shield, but as the man she had kissed in her kitchen because she wanted to. After a moment, she murmured, You're very good at being steady. I'm mostly panicking internally. That's less romantic. I can brood silently if that helps. She smiled into my shirt. No, stay funny. I kissed the top of her hair. I can do that. At the door later, she walked me out, but didn't open it right away. I don't want that text to be the end of tonight, she said. It isn't. No. No, tonight ends with you asking me to dinner. Her eyebrows rose. Does it? I'm trying to be modern and let you pursue me. That is very generous. I'm a gift. She laughed, then bit her lip. Dinner, Evan? Tomorrow? With me and June first? Then maybe just us sometime soon? A clear step, a door opening wider. I touched her tattoo gently, the lighthouse we'd somehow carried back to each other. Yes, I said. To both. This time I kissed her goodbye. Slow, certain, chosen. And when I crossed the porch back to my apartment, I was smiling like a man who had just found the road home and knew there might still be weather ahead. By noon the next day, I had bought 3 books about mermaids. Not one. 3. A picture book, a field guide to mythical sea creatures, and a suspiciously academic volume titled Sirens, Selkies, and Sea Queens that I was fairly sure June would use to become more powerful. Frank saw me, carrying the bag upstairs, and nodded solemnly. Already buying gifts for the kid, he said. It's educational. Sure. And the wine was a success. I know romance, kid. You told me the bottle was romantic but not showy. And did she kiss you? I stopped on the stairs. Frank grinned. Thought so. Dinner was at Tessa's because June insisted their new house needed a first spaghetti ceremony. I arrived at 6 with garlic bread, the mermaid books, and the strange nervousness of a man walking into something that mattered. June opened the door wearing a paper crown. You may enter, she said, but wipe your feet. Mom mopped because she likes you. From somewhere inside, Tessa called, June! I looked down at the tiny queen. State secrets, huh? She said not to tell you. Excellent restraint. Tessa appeared behind her, cheeks pink, hair clipped back, wearing a soft blue sweater that made her eyes look brighter. For a second, all I could do was stare. She noticed. Hi, she said, quieter. Hi, June groaned. Are you going to do the weird staring all night? Probably, Tessa said, and shocked us both. I laughed. Tessa laughed too, and whatever awkwardness had been waiting at the door dissolved. Dinner with a 6-year-old was not romantic in the candlelit sense. June dropped noodles on the floor, asked if woodworkers made coffins, and informed me that if I married her mother, I would have to accept shared custody of an invisible seahorse named Dennis. But it was intimate in a way I wasn't prepared for. Tessa sitting across from me, smiling when June talked too fast. Tessa refilling my water without asking. Tessa's bare foot brushing mine beneath the table and staying there. After spaghetti, June opened the mermaid books and gasped so dramatically I thought she'd injured herself. Mom, he understands. Tessa looked at me over June's head, soft and amused. Apparently you do. I'm trying. Her expression changed at that. Warmth, fear, gratitude, all mixed together. When June finally went to bed, she allowed me to read one mermaid story, corrected my pronunciation of lagoon, and then whispered, You can come again. It felt like being knighted. Tessa walked me back to the kitchen, where 2 mugs of tea waited on the counter. You made tea? I asked. I'm establishing that I can be domestic without banana bread panic. Bold strategy. She handed me a mug and leaned beside me against the counter. For a while we drank in comfortable silence. Then she said, I liked watching you with her. My heart knocked once, hard. She's easy to like. She isn't always easy. Neither am I. Tessa smiled. I noticed. Still invited me to dinner. I'm reckless that way. Our shoulders touched, then our hands. She turned her palm up and I took it. The contact felt different now, less accidental, more claimed. I need to tell you something, I said. Her gaze lifted. Okay. I'm scared of this. She didn't pull away. Me too. I don't mean because of your ex or June or the fact that our tattoos make us sound like we were written by a drunk poet. That startled a laugh out of her. I'm scared, I continued, because I don't feel casual about you. I didn't 10 years ago, which made no sense. I don't now, and it makes even less sense. But I look at you and I want Sunday mornings. I want arguments about where mugs go. I want June telling me I'm reading Sea Monster facts wrong. Tessa's eyes shone. I swallowed. And that's a lot to want after 2 days. It is, she whispered. I know. She set down her mug and turned fully toward me. But I want it too. The words moved through me like light. She stepped between my feet close enough that I could feel her warmth. Not all at once. Not without fear. But I want to see what we are when we stop disappearing on each other. I touched her cheek. I'm not disappearing. Promise carefully, Evan. So I did. I promise I won't run just because this matters. Her eyes closed briefly. When they opened, she rose on her toes and kissed me. This kiss was slower than the first, deeper. Her hands slid up my chest and mine settled at her waist, drawing her closer until there was no polite neighborly space left between us. She sighed against my mouth, and I felt the sound everywhere. For a few minutes, the world narrowed to the kitchen light. The taste of tea, her fingers curling into my shirt like she wanted proof I was staying. Then her phone buzzed on the counter. We both froze. Tessa's jaw tightened before she even looked. The screen lit with another message. Don't ignore me, Tess. I know you're in Portland. The old nickname on that screen felt like a trespass. I wanted to take the phone, call the number, handle it with all the blunt male certainty I'd spent years distrusting in other men. Instead, I kept my hands on Tessa's waist and asked, What do you want? She stared at the message. Her breathing had gone shallow, but her voice, when it came, was steady. I want to not let him ruin another kitchen. Then he doesn't. He used to make me feel dramatic for being scared. You're not dramatic. I know that now. She looked at me. Mostly. Tell me what helps. Her fingers tightened on my shirt. This, you asking, not deciding for me. So we made a plan because she wanted one. She blocked the number. She saved screenshots in a folder. She texted her sister to say he'd resurfaced. Not because she was helpless, but because she was done carrying things alone. When it was over, she set the phone face down and released a shaky breath. I hate that my hands still shake. I took them between mine. They're allowed. She looked down at our joined hands, then leaned forward until her forehead touched my chest. I don't want our story to become about him, she said. It won't. How do you know? Because I'm not falling for him. That surprised a laugh out of her, wet and real. I kissed her hair. I'm falling for the woman who alphabetizes spices, I said. The one who makes nervous banana bread and raises a tiny monarch. The one who sat with me when I was broken and somehow thought I was the lighthouse. She lifted her face. You were. No, I said, brushing my thumb over the star in her tattoo. Maybe we took turns. Her expression softened until it nearly undid me. She kissed me again, not to escape fear, but to choose something better than it. Later, at the door, she didn't ask me to stay. I didn't push. We both knew slow mattered, but she slipped her arms around my waist and held on. Tomorrow, she said. Yes. And the day after, if you're free. I'll make myself free. That sounds dangerously close to devotion. I smiled against her temple. Careful, I'm devastating with devotion. She laughed, then tipped her chin up. One more kiss. Gentle. Certain. When I stepped onto the porch, the night smelled like salt and rain. Tessa stood in the doorway, wrapped in warm light, watching me like she was trying to learn the shape of believing. I was halfway down the steps when her phone rang inside. She glanced back. So did I. For one breath, neither of us moved. Then Tessa looked at me through the open doorway and said calmly, I'm not answering. I walked back up one step, just close enough to take her hand. Good. The phone stopped. Tessa smiled, small but victorious, and squeezed my fingers. And for the first time since I'd met her again, I understood. Loving her wouldn't mean saving her from the storm. It would mean standing beside her while she remembered she could choose the weather too. The next morning, Tessa knocked on my door holding her phone like it was a dead mouse. I answered, she said. I stepped aside. Come in. She did, wearing leggings, an oversized sweater, and the expression of a woman who had already survived the hard part before breakfast. June was at a playdate with Tessa's sister, which meant the apartment felt unusually quiet. No mermaid negotiations, no invisible seahorse, just Tessa and me and the choice she'd made. I didn't answer because I owed him anything, she said quickly. I answered because I wanted to hear myself say no. I nodded. How did it feel? She looked surprised by the question. Then her shoulders loosened. Terrifying. A small smile touched her mouth. Also fantastic. I poured coffee. She leaned against my counter, the same spot where I'd stood alone for years pretending alone was peace. He said he wanted closure, she said, which apparently meant explaining why I misunderstood everything. Generous of him, I told him closure was something he could find without me. I handed her a mug. That's a very good line. I practiced on a shampoo bottle. Strong audience. He didn't like it. Shampoo bottles rarely do. She laughed, but her eyes glistened. I set my coffee down and opened my arms. She came into them without hesitation. That, more than the kiss, undid me. The way she let herself be held now. Not because she was weak. Because she trusted me enough not to use her softness against her. I blocked the new number, she murmured against my chest. My sister knows. If he keeps trying, I'll document it and handle it properly. I'm proud of you. She tipped her head back. You are? Completely. Her gaze moved over my face, slow and tender. You make it very hard to remain suspicious of happiness, Evan Brooks. I apologize for nothing. You're smug for a man with one basil plant and no television. My basil plant is thriving emotionally. It looks depressed. It's private. She smiled, then slid her hands up around my neck. Kiss me before I start diagnosing your herbs. So I did. I kissed her in my kitchen with morning light across the floor and coffee cooling on the counter. I kissed her like a promise made carefully, like a man who understood that love was not a rescue mission, not a lightning strike, not a tattoo proving destiny had done all the work. Love was choosing, again and again. Her mouth softened under mine, and she rose into the kiss, fingers threading through my hair. When we parted, she kept her forehead against mine. "I want to try," she whispered. "Really try. Dates, slow weekends, June asking invasive questions, all of it. My heart felt too big for my ribs, and I want that too. And if I get scared, I'll ask what helps. And if you get scared," I exhaled. That was the part I hadn't expected. Tessa didn't just want to be loved. She wanted to love me back well. "Remind me not to disappear inside my own head," I said. Her thumb brushed my jaw. "Deal." Our first real date happened that Friday. No boxes, no child, no ex's shadow allowed at the table. I took Tessa to a small restaurant near the harbor where the candles came in old jam jars and the menu changed depending on what the fishermen brought in. She wore a black dress under a denim jacket, and I forgot how to speak for a full 3 seconds when she opened her door. June, staying with her aunt, had given me instructions. "No kissing too much," she'd warned. "Mom needs oxygen." I told Tessa that over appetizers. She nearly choked on a mussel. She said that? With authority. She gets that from me. The authority or the oxygen concern? Both. We talked for 3 hours about easy things first, music, movies I hadn't seen, whether soup counted as dinner. Then harder things. My brother. Her years rebuilding herself. My failed engagement. And how I had mistaken calm for love because calm didn't ask me to risk anything. Tessa reached across the table and took my hand. "I don't want to be calm for you," she said. "No. I want to be peace. There's a difference." There was. I felt it sitting there with her, her thumb moving over my knuckles, the harbor lights trembling in the window behind her. After dinner, we walked along the water. The air was cold enough that she tucked herself under my arm without asking. I pulled her closer, and she fit there so naturally it hurt. At the end of the pier, a real lighthouse blinked in the distance. Tessa laughed softly. "Of course. The universe lacks subtlety. It did move me next door to you. After 10 years. Maybe we needed them." I looked down at her. "Do you believe that?" She thought about it. "I believe the woman I was back then could love you for one night. The woman I am now knows how to stay." The wind moved through her hair. The lighthouse flashed again. I turned her toward me. "I'm falling in love with you." Her eyes filled, but she smiled. "That was not very slow." I said falling, not landed. "Oh, very technical. I'm a craftsman. Measurements matter." She laughed, then touched my face with both hands. "I'm falling too," she said, "but I think I knew that when June pointed at your tattoo." Then she kissed me under the harbor lights, and for the first time in years, I stopped bracing for loss long enough to feel joy arrive. By the following spring, my apartment had a television. It was technically Tessa's old one, and I maintained that it entered my home against my will. But every Saturday, June came over for scientific mermaid research, and Tessa curled beside me on the couch while a man named Brock screamed at dust particles. The basil plant died in February. Tessa held a memorial. June drew it with angel wings. I built June a bookshelf shaped like a wave. I built Tessa a kitchen table from reclaimed maple wide enough for homework, coffee, banana bread, bills, flowers, and the ordinary beautiful mess of a life being shared. The text stopped after Tessa made it clear, in writing and through the right channels, that contact was not welcome. It mattered, but it did not become the center of us. We became the center of us. Slowly, deliberately, with mistakes. I learned Tessa got quiet when overwhelmed, not distant. She learned I fixed things when nervous, which was how her hallway closet got 3 unnecessary shelves after our first argument. June learned that if she asked me for one more story, I was weak. And one rainy night, almost a year after she moved in, Tessa and June stood in my workshop while I pretended not to be shaking. On the table was a small wooden lighthouse I had carved by hand. At its base were 3 numbers, hidden in the grain. Above the lantern room was one tiny star. Tessa covered her mouth. June squinted at it. "Is this a proposal object?" Tessa laughed and cried at the same time. "June, I'm just asking." I knelt anyway because some traditions deserved their moment. Tessa, I said, my voice rough, 10 years ago, you found me in the worst night of my life. Last summer, you found me again. I don't think you saved me. I think you saw me. And I want to spend my life seeing you back. Her tears slipped freely now. I love you, I said. I love June. I love the life we're building, even when it's loud and complicated and full of mermaids. Will you marry me? June whispered loudly. Say yes? Tessa looked at her daughter, then at me. Yes, she said. Obviously, yes. June cheered. Tessa dropped to her knees in front of me and kissed me so hard we both laughed into it. Her hands framed my face and mine held her waist, and between us, our matching tattoos touched. 2 lighthouses, 1 star, no longer symbols of strangers passing in a storm. Outside, rain tapped the workshop windows. Inside, June wrapped her arms around both of us and declared, Now we are keeping him. And Tessa, smiling through tears, said, Yes, sweetheart, we are. What would you have done if a new neighbor's child pointed at your tattoo and said, You had the same one as her mom? Have you ever experienced a coincidence that felt too meaningful to ignore? Tell me your story in the comments. If you like this one, leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.